Okay, welcome back to my opinion. This little video is going to be about handgun pistol testing. These torture tests that gun tubers do. The military does it too, such as the M18, M17. But what the military is doing when they're testing these firearms is to see which ones do the best, to the point of basically destroying the pistol. Because a pistol is not really meant to be shot thousands of rounds all at once. Here's the truth about a handgun. It's mostly for a self-defense, as far as the public goes, to be carried on your hip with an extra mag or two. As far as the military goes, it's meant as a last resort, a means of fighting to get to your rifle, or you're in dire straits and this is your last resort. You're not going to go into combat. This isn't Call of Duty. You don't go into combat with a pistol only. A pistol, most soldiers, Marines, etc., do not carry pistols. It's generally your tankers, lieutenants and stuff like that, who aren't going to be directly on the line. It's not pilots, etc. So these torture tests that YouTubers, the gun tubers do, 3,000 round tests, burnout tests and stuff on a handgun, dumping it in mud. Those tests are silly, because a pistol, I would like to see more practical tests, like dropping it, chest high on the pavement, because you could drop your pistol. Dropping it in the dirt and then picking it up. Dropping it in a puddle of water, puddle of mud. But what they'll do is they'll stick it in a vat of mud and then completely cover it up, bury in it, and pull it out and start shooting right away. You're not going to do that. If you do drop your pistol in a vat of mud and it does somehow completely get covered up, you're going to shake the fuck out of that thing to get that mud out of there. These tests and the thousands of rounds tests, most of these guns nowadays are plastic in part of them. Of course they're not going to last very long. They're not meant to last thousands of rounds. That's why the military tests them to the point of thousands of rounds, to see when it does fail, how it fails. Is it going to be able to recover from after, 500,000 rounds or 1,000 rounds or whatever, to be able to go back in service? But if you're having to shoot 1,000 rounds with your pistol, you were fucked at about 50 rounds. You never made it to 100. That's just the way it is. These tests, no pistol's going to last that kind of testing. They're not meant to be. They can't do that. They're not combat weapons. They're used in combat as a last line of defense, like a pilot, because he can't put an M16 or an AR in his, or a spear, in the cockpit with him. Can you imagine an Apache helicopter pilot? I mean, but yeah, you see too much of that, and that's silly. There's some practical testing. If you're one of these gun tubers that wants to test firearms and stuff, now like the Sig Sauer, the P320, it never even makes it out of the holster without failing, apparently. But like Glocks and stuff, everybody goes on about Glocks, and Glocks are awesome, and I'm a fanboy. I'm a big Glock person. I've carried many Glocks over the years. I've probably had one of everything, just about. But I've had bad Glocks. I've bought in Glocks before and had bad Glocks. And gun manufacturers do make bad firearms. Even Glock can make a lemon. It's just the way it is. It happens. So, you do need to test your gun, take it to the range, shoot it 500 times or so, and then you're pretty confident you can carry it. Test your mags, all your mags, not just the one that's in the gun, because you can have a bad mag. Test your ammo, of course, all that stuff, that you're going to be carrying. But as far as shooting thousands of rounds through a pistol, that's ridiculous. Even a full-frame steel pistol. Even in World War I and II, the 1911 didn't get used like... It's not Call of Duty. It was a last resort. It was, oh shit, they're in my foxhole with me. My rifle's out of ammo or jammed up. I got to draw my pistol. But yeah, I'd like to see some gun tubers that do these testings and stuff. I like them. They're very interesting. And they do point out a lot of flaws and problems, etc. But do some more practical testing. Drop it in realistic stuff, what people would drop it in. Nobody's going to throw it in the pond and leave it there for 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, that's a silly test. Nobody's going to shoot thousands of rounds to where you have to wear fucking mechanic gloves because it's so hot that you can't even touch it. Of course it's going to melt any of the plastic on that firearm. Even the steel, is not going to last up to that. Springs, etc. You're going to warp the gun. But, do some realistic testing. Tying a rope to it and dragging it down a gravel road. Nobody's going to do that. Drop it out of the back of the truck while you're driving down a gravel road. Let it bounce a few times. I mean, you could do that. You could leave it on the top of your car for a second while you're getting in and forget about it. It goes tumbling down the road on a gravel road. Do some realistic testing. Don't ask me to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not fucking my guns up like that. But anyway, that's what I think. I just wanted to point out these unrealistic tests that gun tubers and stuff do, and people actually look at that and think, oh, that gun's junk because it didn't last 5,000 rounds. Of course it didn't. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe and be safe.